In this video, I'm going to show you how I fixed a local business Facebook ads and took them from losing a lot of money to fully booked within just a couple of months. Okay, so case study time. I think you guys are going to find this really interesting and potentially really valuable because you'll be able to see what we did for this business, how it might apply to yours and help improve your results as well. So let's start by giving a little bit of context around this business, so you understand the detail, the context, and then you'll understand the change we made, why it was so effective, all that sort of stuff. So we're talking about a physiotherapy business, family owned, had been for 20 plus years, and they'd sort of slowly built, they'd done well, but slowly built to 11 locations, all based in around the southwest of England, so kind of like a regional chain, as it were. Most of their customers for those 11 locations had been acquired through word of mouth. A lot of them were quite close to each other. So it was a case of they'd sort of reach capacity with one location, be oversubscribed, then open a new one, a drive away, not super far, not right next door, but one of those where some of their existing customers would immediately move over to the new location because that's closer and easier. And so they were able to sort of do that quite organically and quite slowly, is how their previous growth strategy had been. And when you do it that way, it takes a lot of time to build that word of mouth. It had taken 20 plus years to scale, but they reached a stage where they wanted to scale much faster. So like I said, family run business, been going for more than 20 years. And what had happened is sort of the younger generation had got involved with the family business. And this is very common. It's actually, I started doing this with my mum's interior design business when I was like late teens, early 20s. I got involved helping her out and then wanted to scale much more aggressively. Something similar happened with this business. Younger generations were like, right, there's a formula here that works. Let's go for it. So they recently opened 2 new locations sort of along that line in a new city. So where I said before, they were able to leverage some of their existing client base and move them over to the new locations to help get those started, wasn't really the case. Still in the southwest of England, but just a little bit further away, and was effectively a new market. So they struggled to acquire clients for this new location. They'd mostly just got their customers through referrals, through being around, through establishment, through a long time, and hadn't done much sort of cold customer acquisition previously. But they decided, did some research. They thought meta ads would be a good option for their business to be able to fill up these new locations, advertising to cold audiences. I think it definitely was a good idea. So they tried running meta ads themselves for about 9 months. No success, really struggled. They tried selling direct offer, so just directly advertising their services, found that very difficult. That doesn't surprise me at all. I'll get into more details of why in a minute and what we recommended you do instead. They also tested a lead magnet first strategy. In this case, it was free guides, so things like free guides on how to resolve lower back pain and like various ailments that they would actually be able to treat as physiotherapists. But they found that when they did that, they could generate leads, they could get people to opt in, struggled to get those leads to convert to clients. The follow-up process wasn't great, or things weren't aligned. I actually don't think that was the ideal sales funnel structure for them, again, which I'll talk about more in a minute. So what they did is they've been watching my videos, learning how to do this themselves, joined my mentorship program, having given it a good go themselves and not really gotten it anywhere. And they wanted to improve their Facebook ad results. That's why they joined. They thought if we can get the advice and the help and the support, we'll be able to improve results. I'll talk more about what happened later. So what did I change? What do we recommend as part of my mentorship program in terms of the things to improve the results? Well, I want to set some context around why we did what we did here. And that's looking at the dynamics of the business. This is just a quick aside, but whenever you're taking advice on Facebook and Instagram advertising, it's always really important to think, is that person that's giving this advice, is that applicable to my situation? Do they have experience in lots of different fields, lots of different verticals? Because a lot of people giving advice on ad strategy, they just know how to sell the one thing and that's their thing, and therefore they advise that to everyone. And us as an agency, we work with all different types of businesses all over the world. We know that different businesses need different structures. So this is a local business, and that changes the dynamics significantly when it comes to advertising and the ideal strategy. I really like advertising local businesses. It's often a lot easier to advertise local businesses. There's far less competition for a start. If you're trying to be the best jewelry-based business, jewelry e-commerce business, let's say, advertising on Facebook and Instagram, like, good luck. You're going to be competing nationally, internationally against really big companies that know what they're doing. Like, that's going to be really hard. How hard is it to have the best ads for a physiotherapist in a local town where you might be only competing against 3 or 4 other businesses that are actually running ads, maybe less than that, depending on the size of the place, maybe a few more. But the bar is not going to be that high. Relatively easy to be the best advertiser in that space and dominate that market. And because of that, with local businesses, the offer is incredibly important. I think what's happened over the last few years when it comes to talking about offers in Facebook and Instagram ads is that so many people have read Alex Hormozi's $100 million offers book. They've come up with these crazy offers. There's so many of them in the marketing space. Honestly, offers that are completely unrealistic and over the top. And people have become somewhat jaded with those sorts of offers. And that's why I wanted to differentiate here and talk about the fact that this is a local business, because that does not apply to a local business. Whereas if I tried to come up with some crazy, ludicrous marketing-related guarantee that is unrealistic alongside all the others, advertising to cold audiences for our done-for-you services, let's say as an agency, that would just seem silly and just get lost in the noise. But a local business, you can have a better offer and have the best ads for physiotherapists in your area very quickly and easily. So we felt like this business needed a new strategy, needed a new sales funnel, didn't like the direct offer at full price. Not a huge fan in this case of the lead magnet strategy either. So here's what we recommended we do instead. Advertise a discovery session with a massive discount. So it's effectively like a Tripwire strategy. Some of you might be familiar with that term. It's something that requires a very small and easy commitment, Tripwire, that then makes it much easier to sell things high ticket later on. So they were offering existing assessment and treatment plans, kind of like their discovery session equivalent, and that cost £85. So I recommended an 80% discount, which, as you can probably imagine, got some pushback initially. We really sort of were like, I think this will really help. Like, I think this is gonna work out. I'll run you through the numbers and how this worked out in a minute. But yeah, that got some pushback, as a lot of good offers do. So the new price is going to be £17. Now, just to be clear, we're not advertising at £17. We're advertising it at £85, 80% off. Like, making that very clear. Part of the reason why there's a lot of pushback from the business owner on this one was because this business lose money when they offer that assessment and treatment plan discovery session for £17 because they've got the cost of the physiotherapist to deliver on that, which is going to mean they lose money. But the typical thing that clients are offered after that will be a 12-session treatment plan at £65 each. Now, some, depending on what the issue is, right? Some's going to be less, some's going to be more, but we worked out that's roughly the average. So the average customer value after that initial session, after that discovery session, is £780. Plus, of course, word of mouth and referrals. And this should not be underestimated with local businesses. That's how this business had built to this point to begin with, and they've done really well. But word of mouth and referrals is much bigger thing when it's a local business. People feel much more comfortable recommending a local restaurant or a local anything entertainment related, or something like a local physio if my friend's got issues and right? That is really powerful. It's powerful in all forms of business, but more powerful with local than it is with national or international businesses. So how that factors into your marketing strategy is you might be willing to acquire customers a little bit more aggressively, pay a bit more for a customer if they're a local customer, because there's a decent chance that one customer turns into more, provided you do a good job with your service. Okay, let's hash out. I'll talk through some more details when it comes to what we recommend strategy-wise and the offer. So this 80% off discount on the discovery session, I wanted to make it time sensitive. So only available until the end of the month or something along those lines, right? Have some urgency in there. And urgency is one of the things that's going to help convince people to take action. And I also wanted them to include the other element that convinces people to take action, and that's scarcity. So they're advertising that there are only about 40 discounted assessments available, because we worked out, okay, of the, let's say in this location, there's 4 physiotherapists that can offer this. How many can they realistically do? Right, well, they can only do, 1 or 2 of these a day alongside their other stuff. So that's not a made up number. That was roughly correct. 40 discounted sessions available. And a lot of advertisers don't include information around scarcity, but that's nearly always there and easy to include, because if you're a service-based business, you have capacity constraints. Like, there's no way you could take on 1,000 most likely new clients next month, right? Some businesses are a really small number, so you can say that. It helps encourage people to take action. They don't want to miss out. That fear of missing out makes them go, ooh, there's only 40 of these in my whole town of 100,000 people. Right, okay, quick, let's go and jump on one of these. Even product based, you can say the same thing. Stock. There's all sorts of reasons. The only time when that's not true is going to be SaaS or something along those lines. Create scarcity, like I said. Now, this client was concerned that an urgent and scarce offer wouldn't be on brand, that it would not have any longevity, because you're like, right, well, what happens when the end of the month comes around? And I really don't think that's something that a business like this needs to worry about. Having urgency and scarcity is absolutely something that luxury businesses and premium brands embrace. If you think of the fanciest restaurants, they have waiting lists, really hard to get a table. If you think of luxury products, Rolex watches, for example, you've got to be on a wait list for some insane amount of time to even get one in the first place. So like, don't worry about that. It's not, I think people worry it's going to come across as salesy and a bit sleazy. Like, no. The most luxurious companies in the world, Ferraris, you have to buy, I think, to get a new Ferrari, you have to have already owned Ferraris previously. Like, there's all sorts of extra steps you have to jump through, all this scarcity, and if one is available, you've got to jump on it immediately and things like that. So not something to worry about. And the point about longevity, that, if we only run a sale that ends at the end of the month, then what do we do after that? Do you run a new sale? You can absolutely do that. And a lot of business owners think that that's a problem because they assume that their prospects are paying much more attention to their ads than they actually are. Most of your ads are going to be ignored. They're going to be skimmed past. They're not sort of really taken in. So yes, there might be a few people that see that you're running a sale last month and then running another sale this month, but not many people are going to actually clock that. And you can just create an offer variation. You can just tie it into something else, another reason to create a sale. So you could have a spring sale, and then a summer sale, and then a my business turns 7 sale, and then it's International Physiotherapist Week sale, and there's so many that you could have. Obviously, Black Friday, Christmas, any like event you just tie it into. You can have a sale for every month of the year quite easily, and it looked different and it'd be presented differently, and it makes sense in the prospect's mind because you're going, oh, okay, yeah, that's a get in shape for summer sale, that's a lose some weight before you head into the holiday season sale, like that's a new year whatever for physiotherapists, right? So all sorts of things that you can tie those into, and you can run these significantly. Lots of businesses do that. I don't think you need to worry about it. Okay, so going in a little bit more detail on why we went with this Tripwire strategy and why it worked, I'll tell you the results in a second, is that they found that selling full price to cold audiences was too hard. I'm not surprised. It's a reasonable commitment. People know they're likely to go on a journey with a physiotherapist. They're not just going to have the one session to be done. It's most likely going to be an ongoing thing. So sort of, if that barrier to entry initially is high, it's just a little bit, there's some inertia there that you have to overcome. We didn't, however, want to go the other end of the spectrum and offer a fully free assessment, because if we did that, I think we'd end up with really low quality leads in a lot of cases that just, we had virtually no chance of upselling the sort of 12 session or so package afterwards. And that would waste a lot of time and cost us a lot of money. So we wanted that nice middle ground. And I felt like with the Tripwire strategy, like a scarce and urgent offer, where it would hit in their market would be those people that have had an issue for a while. It's there, they can live with it, but it's uncomfortable, it gets in the way. Maybe they've stopped going to the gym or stopped doing the sport they really enjoy. And something like a Tripwire, an 80% off offer, where there's only a few slots available and it ends at the end of the month, in a week, in a few days, something like that, then it's just a sort of thing to get that person to go, right, okay, whilst it's here, I'll go ahead and get this looked at and see if I can do some rehab on my knee that's been giving me issues, etc., etc. And it did. It worked really well. This sort of offer, though, interestingly, not as effective for prospects with acute issues. So I've just sprained an ankle, I'm going to go to physio to help like rehab it or something like that. This sort of offer is not really going to draw those people in as much, because those people are probably going to work with a physiotherapist anyway, whether it's full price, discounted. That's just not that market. But that was okay, because we were looking here to, there's plenty of people that have chronic ongoing issues that they know they should get looked at but haven't yet. That was going to fill these practices up, no problem. And the other ones, less control over, they'd come in as and when. And actually, what you find is that once you've got a customer base for a business like this, those people then make the referrals to the people that do have acute issues. Like, I have it all the time. I play six-side football, and if someone gets hurt, that's when someone will recommend, oh, I worked with a physio, give this guy a call, he'll help out, that's when it happens. But you have to have the customer base who have the experience with the practice to then be able to make the recommendation when something like that pops up. So this is important. You need to understand your customer and their mindset. Like, where are they at? What do we need to do to get them to take action? Who are we going after within our marketplace here? And that informs your marketing. And hopefully that demonstrates what we did there. So we directly advertise this Tripwire offer. We're not putting a lead magnet or something in front of the Tripwire. I just don't think that's necessary because £17, it's an impulse purchase. People would pay that for all sorts of things without giving it a second's thought. So we can just go ahead and directly advertise something relatively inexpensive like that. So in a second, I'm going to talk about the ad creative and what that looked like for this business specifically, because that's very, very interesting. But first, I want to let you know about Hyros. Hyros is the best tracking and attribution software for Facebook and Instagram ads. It's a software that all the big players, including myself, use. I use it to track the results that I generate from my own ads. I also use it for all my organic content as well, which is really useful. So if someone comes through and books a call for our done for you services, for example, I can see exactly where they came from with a lot of accuracy, and that allows me to make decisions in my business, which is really, really helpful. And let me quickly show you how important this is. So I'm in my Hyros dashboard. I've isolated one of our meta ad campaigns and I've created a report for it so we can see the data and you can take a look at this. So this campaign spent just under £2,000, generated £15,000 in revenue. But here's the really important bit, reported versus revenue. And in this column, we can see £12,000. Now what that means is that out of the £15,000 that this campaign has actually generated, Hyros has been able to report on the full 15,000, £12,000 of which Meta was not originally able to see. So if we're just looking within our Meta ad account, not using Hyros, we would have seen that £3,000 of revenue was generated from this campaign, and that is not true at all. That is a much, much lower ROAS number than the actual £15,000 of revenue that was generated. For a number of years now, Meta's ad tracking capabilities have not been as accurate as they once were because all sorts of privacy regulations have come into effect, and it's only heading that way. It's only becoming more and more difficult to get accurate data and track our results as we need to be able to do. This is a relatively extreme case, and the reason why is because Meta has a 7-day maximum attribution window, and this is an ad campaign that's retargeting for one of our services that people usually take a lot longer than 7 days to make a decision on. So if someone clicks on an ad, they often won't convert within 7 days. Meta's simply not able to see that data, and that's where Hyros comes in. The important thing is that you need accurate data, and Hyros takes care of that. So if you want to get better results from your Facebook ads without actually having to touch your ads, go ahead and sign up to Hyros. There is a link in the video description. Okay, so let's talk about ad creative and the ad creative we use for this business, because I think this is really, really interesting. So we recommended creating a bunch of different stuff, and this client was really good at actually going ahead and implementing and doing that. Remember, these were part of my mentorship program, so it wasn't like we do it for them. It was we coach and consult and tell them and show them how to do it, provide feedback, all that sort of stuff. So a few different things were tested, and then what worked the best by far were post-treatment customer reaction video compilations, which is quite a long thing to say. You've almost certainly seen this sort of thing already. This actually tends to perform quite well as organic content, which is great, because if it's engaging enough for organic content, then it'll almost certainly work as an ad where you can control the distribution. But it'll be things like someone would come in for a session, and let's say they've got an issue with their shoulder and they've got limited mobility, and then there's some adjustments we made and things would be loosened off and all sorts, and then the person would be like, oh wow, I can now, just at the end of the treatment, they'd be like, right, move it. And they're like, oh, I haven't been able to do that in ages. That's not painful for me to make that movement anymore. But capturing that reaction, that sort of quite visceral, the person's relieved, they're really happy, and being able to stack those, so compilations of those, not just the one, is what we found worked best, but a number of those in a video ad performed really, really well. I've actually talked about this before. We've used this in a few different businesses where you get that sort of reaction to things. I've seen restaurant chains do this where people like are reacting to a mouthful of something. Like there's lots of versions of this, but it worked for this business, and I'm not surprised. This business is actually quite happy to be able to implement this, but I have had pushback from other business owners where I've talked about doing something like this, and they talk about, well, how on earth do you get permission? I don't think it's that difficult. So with a business like this, you could say, do you mind if we record the session for training purposes? Most people are going to say yes, and then provided if they don't have one of those like great reactions at the end, then you don't bother asking the next question. But the next question is then, it seemed like you got a lot out of this, it was really helpful, would you mind if we just take that little bit of you sort of moving your shoulder or moving your hip or whatever, and just using that in our marketing material? Again, some people might say no, a lot of people are going to say yes. And you can even incentivize it. You could say, by the way, it's 20% off the next session if you do let us do that, because it's really helpful for us in terms of reviews and things along those lines. Not too difficult, we just got to be willing to do that. Like I said, best performance so far. And actually, interestingly, in a lot of the ad creative, these video compilations, we didn't even explain the offer. So didn't have like a section where talking about the 80% off the initial assessment and all that sort of stuff. That information was in there. It was in the primary text. It was in like a shortened version, obviously, in the headline and then detailed on the landing page. But that was a way that it was, I think, because the videos themselves were so compelling and just so engaging as a creative format, we didn't need those in there. It didn't negatively hurt results. In fact, the ads without that performed better, which is really interesting. Now, it's not what I normally recommend for most businesses, but I think in this case, it was good to note. Like I said, info including the ad copy and landing page. So let's have a look at the results. So the cost per sale for the initial assessment was £29. Now, obviously, they're only paying £17. You're paying £29 in advertising cost. So you might be thinking, okay, losing money, but we need to have a look at the sales funnel on a whole. 1 in 3 clients who booked the assessment, the initial assessment, went on to become a longer term customer, which is an average of a 12-session treatment plan, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on what it was, but an average. I think the business might be able to improve that over time as well, like want to do more of these and sort of get into the habit of that, but 1 in 3 is a decent start. So if we look at cost to acquire customer, the CAC, it's £29 times 3, so we need 3 people to go through these initial assessments to get 1 longer term customer. And then we need to deduct the £17 that they've paid times 3, because that's money that's sort of received as part of the customer acquisition process. So you're looking at £36 to acquire a customer that is worth, on average, £780 with that initial treatment run. Good chance they'll come back in a few years' time or whenever they next have an issue. Good chance they'll refer, etc., etc. Now, we do need to factor in here, the numbers won't be quite as good as that, as £36 cost to acquire a customer, because 3 people had those initial assessments. So that the time of the therapists needs to be included. But you can still see that this is a really profitable sales funnel. Based on these numbers, as 22x, whereas even factoring in those costs, you're still looking at more than a 15x return on ad spend. So absolutely fantastic and absolutely something you can scale, which is what this business did. And the physiotherapists at both locations fully booked within 60 days. And that's one of the great things about local. You work it out and you can scale, and boom, you can get all booked up. And with a business like this, one of the interesting things about running ads to acquire customers is that the requirement for budget is very much front loaded. So you open a new location and it's empty. But once you start filling up calendars and you build that customer base and they refer and they come back over time, that requirement for advertising goes down and down and down. Like their other locations, for example, a lot of those are completely full with no advertising at all. It's just referrals, word of mouth, and they've been around a long time. Now, I'm not saying that, after the 60 days you turn the ads off, you never turn them on again. That would be unrealistic, but that requirement for ad spend is going to go down and down, provided you deliver a good service. That's a really important point here, because word of mouth can work in the opposite, can compound against you if you deliver a poor service, and then it's going to work the opposite. You're going to need to spend more and more over time to get people in, because there's some people being put off and don't use them and that sort of thing. But provided you deliver a good service, this business obviously that's how they've been able to build their locations to date, then you don't need to spend as much over time, and you can invest that money for a business like this into opening new locations, which is a great thing. And then this business is once again constrained by capacity as opposed to the ability to acquire customers, which is a great place to be, because they wanted to be able to do that. They wanted to be able to have a formula for opening new locations and filling them up quickly, which will allow them to scale much faster. Like I said, the next generation really want to explode the business, and I think they might be able to do so. And we've helped them get there, or help them along the journey to getting there. And we can do that for you as well. So if you'd like my team to help with your Facebook and Instagram ads, a couple of different options I want to very quickly run through. So my agency is called Heath Media, and it's a specialist Meta and Google advertising agency. So my company, we can create, manage, optimize your Facebook and Instagram ad campaigns, take that workload off your hands if you're running it yourself, or take it off the hands of another agency if they're not doing a great job, and would almost certainly get you significantly better results. We spent more than $150 million on the platform for our clients, worked with businesses in every vertical you can think of: local, e-com, SaaS, service, coaches, consultants, everything you can think of all around the world. Generated more than $600 million from that ad spend. Those are very conservative numbers. There's only so much we can verify going back into the past because of what data the platforms actually give you. But very conservative numbers, but we still spent a ton, very much experienced in this space. So if that sounds interesting, there is a link in the video description below where you can click on that and book in a free call, find out more about how I might be able to help. There's a good chance you'll speak to someone who'll tell you what we've been able to do for a business just like yours. We do have a 5K per month minimum budget requirement for that service, just to quickly let you know. Or we can help through my Facebook ads mentorship program. And that's what this client had been through, this case study example, as opposed to us managing their ads for them and sort of getting in their ad account, doing that specifically. Instead, we've coached, consulted, shown them exactly what to do. I provided educational material, provided feedback, talked to them often about this to help get them to where they are now, and it's worked really well for them. So as part of my mentorship program, you get access to exclusive course material that isn't available anywhere else. Multiple daily live calls. We've basically created a system where me or one of my team is basically on a live call throughout the day. And you can just hop on, ask any questions that you've got, get real-time feedback on something. Let's say you've created new ads and you want feedback, or you're wondering which strategy to use, or you want someone to take a look at your landing page. Like, we have someone available basically all the time to be able to go ahead and do that, which people have found tremendously valuable, because the feedback loop from when they want to know something to when they find out is really quick, and it's coming from me and my $600 million team, right? So very experienced people that know what they're doing. We also have specific trainings, Q&As, where you can ask any questions, and just as much support as we can possibly provide, basically. Also, an amazing community with 800 business owners just like you that have been through it, that are part of it, and you're able to communicate, potentially make contacts. If that's something that would be of interest to you, that is an option too. Link in the video description if you want to go ahead and check that out. Again, you can book a free call, find out more about how we might be able to help through my mentorship program, and no minimum budget requirement for that one. Okay, if you found this video useful, want me to make more case study videos like this, please let me know in the comments and go ahead and subscribe, and I'll see you on another video.